Hey everybody, it's Eden. If you're new here, welcome to this little series called BookMinded. You can think of it as a sort of book club space. And we're launching this book club with Wuthering Heights. And before we start our reading journey with this book, I want to share a few things that hopefully will make this process easier, richer, and I dare say enjoyable, especially if you're new to reading classics or if classics have felt confusing or intimidating in the past. There are no spoilers, just enough to help us know where we are while reading and to get as much out of it as possible. One sentence plot compass. So let's start with something that can be very grounding. In one sentence, Wuthering Heights is a story about obsession, fatal attraction, and a destructive love that refuses to die, and how its emotional consequences ripple across generations. That's it. You don't need to know all the details yet, just something to hold on to while reading. So if at any point you're thinking, wait, what's going on? Like, why are people so intense? Just come back to that sentence and continue reading with that in mind. Now, if you've ever felt a bit confused at the beginning of a classic, it's good to know just a bit about the narrative structure because, like many other classics, Wuthering Heights doesn't tell its story in a straight line. So here's what's happening. We start with Mr. Lockwood, an outsider renting a house. He's confused, we're confused, and that's intentional. Then we meet Nellie Dean, who slowly tells him and us the real story. So you can think of it as a story within a story, and it's told after most of the damage has already been done. Another thing to remember is that it's told through memory, and I think it would be interesting to pay attention to the different perspectives, the language that they use, and see whether we find these narrators reliable. But that's basically what we need to know about the narrative structure for now. And remember that it's okay if you feel a bit disoriented at the beginning. Historical context. Very briefly, a little bit of context. One of my favorite points in today's video. So Wuthering Heights was published in 1847 during the Victorian era. I don't know if you can hear Oliver snoring at the back. It just makes it hard to focus. When we say Victorian era, we're talking about Britain during Queen Victoria's reign in the 19th century. Now, other countries were living through the same years, but this term is very specific to British culture. But because Britain was a global power at the time, Victorian ideas traveled and had a huge influence beyond Britain, especially in literature, social norms, scientific thinking, and so on. This was a time that was obsessed with morality and social rules. They were very strict about gender and class and being emotionally restrained, at least on the outside. And that matters because Wuthering Heights is shaped by those values and tensions. And it's also why this novel felt shocking when it was published. It's emotionally excessive, almost feral, and it was considered chaotic and immoral, and it deeply challenged their ideas of what was considered good manners. That tension between what is considered good, how am I expected to behave, and behaving in a way that is considered immoral, irrational, out of control, that tension is kind of the point. Another topic that I really love talking about, and that's the Gothic genre. Wuthering Heights has often been described as a Gothic novel. So what does that mean? In simple terms, the Gothic is a style of literature that explores dark, mysterious, and emotionally intense situations. And because of that, it often combines horror and romance, creating a sense of intense emotion. One effect the Gothic often aims for is what critics call the sublime, which is experiences that are awe-inspiring, beautiful, but at the same time terrifying. The goal of the Gothic is to create some kind of pleasurable terror. Gothic novels usually include features like supernatural, mysterious, so think about ghosts, vampires, dark secrets, dark pasts, unknown forces. You'll see wild, isolated landscapes like forests, ruined houses, and overall you'll have a dark, intense atmospheres. You'll feel the suspense, the fear, the tension, all of it. So Gothic novels, like Wuthering Heights, use the sublime to make the story intense and emotionally gripping, and we are going to see these Gothic features everywhere. The houses, the weather, the moors, they all reflect the characters' emotions and add fuel to this disturbing fire. We're going to see obsession, passion, rage, grief, revenge, and everything is turned up to the extreme. That is part of why this novel was so shocking for Victorians, because Victorian society preferred to ignore the darker, messier side of human nature that Gothic novels love to explore quite deeply. So thinking about the Gothic while we read will help us notice how the story, the setting, the characters, how everything is connected, and why this novel still feels intense and relevant today. Even if you've never read this book, the name Brontë might be familiar to you. The Brontë family included 3 very talented sisters, Emily, Anne, and Charlotte Brontë, and all of them published poetry and novels. You might be familiar with Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre or Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and now you'll be familiar with Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. At first they published their work under male pseudonym, so our Emily called herself Alice Bell. This was her only novel, and she was known to be a deeply private person, so private that it raised questions among early critics about how she managed to write such an intense and psychologically complex novel without having experienced of the social world. It also made critics wonder what Emily herself thought about her characters. Did she approve of their behavior or condemn it? But knowing just a bit about her personality suggests that she wasn't trying to teach moral lessons or create likable characters. She seemed more interested in observing them and exploring what happens when powerful emotions like love and resentment are left unchecked or uncontained. So perhaps don't try to look for a hero, because from what I read about the story anyway, there really isn't one. I'm sure it's clear, but I'm going to say this anyway. I'm not a native English speaker, so know that I've struggled with reading classics, and I'm sure I'm going to struggle with this one as well. Although it gets easier when you read more from a specific genre or time period, you become more familiar with the background, with what to expect, with certain terms, and I promise you that you too can fall in love with reading classics and see the beauty in them. But if at the beginning it feels a bit challenging, that's completely normal, and that's totally fine, because even if you read it in your own language, let's be honest, nobody speaks like that today. It's old, it's descriptive, and yeah, sometimes it feels like nothing is really happening. But this is the shift I think is important to make. This is not a fast plot novel. It's an emotional novel. We're not reading for events. We're reading for mood, for appreciation of the written word, for obsession, for silence, for longing. Pay attention to how everything is described, and you'll start to see the beauty in the language and what can be done with it. You are encouraged to read slowly, reread some paragraphs, and if it's a bit confusing, just remind yourself that you're not supposed to understand everything immediately. Going forward, you know me, I love annotating. So if you want to annotate along with me, these are the scribe categories I've chosen and the things I'll look for while reading. You're more than welcome to look for these too. And if you choose different categories, please share them with me. I'd love to know what you want to focus on. So S is for spotlight. This is the main idea I'm focusing on, and for this book, it's love. The reason is that I'm currently researching the romantasy genre. I'm looking at different tropes, why it's so popular, and how readers respond to it. And I'm really curious to see what love looks like in classic literature, starting with Wuthering Heights. So I'm going to look at how love is defined, how it's expressed. Is it healthy, distractive, obsessive? Basically, what does love mean in this book? C is for core ideas. So here I'm looking for Gothic features, the sublime, and the idea of the Byronic hero. In short, a Byronic hero is a type of character that comes from the works of the poet Lord Byron. He's usually brooding, emotionally intense, rebellious, morally complicated, and often deeply flawed. He's not a traditionally good guy, but he's magnetic and fascinating. If you think of modern examples, this is kind of the blueprint for so many dark, morally grey male characters we see today. The kind that readers are drawn to even when they behave terribly. So while reading, I want to see what I make of Heathcliff. Is he a Byronic hero? And if so, I want to try and put my finger on why are we still so drawn to characters like this. R is for representation. Here I'm focusing on representations of nature, the house, and culture and class. I want to think about questions like, is the house a place of safety or is it a cage? Does nature represent freedom or chaos? And how do class and social structures shape the character's choices? I is for insights. This is where I look for intertextuality and references to historical context. Intertextuality in simple terms means how a text talks to other texts. I dare you to say this 3 times. Sometimes it's through references, quotes, share ideas, or familiar character types. So I'll be paying attention to moments where Wuthering Heights feels like it's in conversation with other Gothic novels, romantic poetry, or Victorian ideas more broadly. B is for best quotes, and this one is self-explanatory. Basically, lines that stop me and feel emotionally charged or perfectly capture a theme or moment. E is for explore further. These are things I might want to look into later, but that aren't my main focus right now. So for example, it can be Victorian laws, representations of religion, or any idea that sparks curiosity but doesn't need to pull me away from the core reading. One last thing before I let you go. I've attached a family tree in the description box. You can refer to it if and whenever you need, because Emily Brontë chose very similar names for her characters, and that can get confusing. I'm also curious to think about why she did that and what that repetition might say. So just know that it's there for you if you need it. And with that, let's go read. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you here between the chapters. Bye for now.